everyone, welcome back to Founders Fail, Lessons Learned. Today we are here with the founder of Flavor Inc. and Spark Plaza, Jose Castillo. And really Napoleon Hill said, most great people have achieved their greatest success one step beyond their greatest failure. How do you find that quote? Do you find that quote to be true in your life?
I find it 100% true. I think if you look at great founders, people who have built things, launched things, it was the last bit of light right at the end of the tunnel that kept them going. And I find, particularly when you talk to those kind of people and you hear their stories, it's failure after failure after failure until they find something that works. And for me, I think it speaks to persistence. It speaks to not giving up and getting up, every time you get knocked down.
For sure. That makes perfect sense. That's so true. When you think back to the ventures you've started, you've been a serial entrepreneur for a long time. I'm sure there are all kinds of ideas, but what is the one failure moment or story or point in your life that you go back to and you think about? What is the story behind that?
So I think I've had a lot of failures, and I think, again, people that start a lot of things, you get a little bit more comfortable with it. But it's never easy, but it is, something that you replicate, which is good. And I go back to my dad, who taught me a lot about what entrepreneurship is. He owned his own business, and both sides of my family were all entrepreneurs. But he, when I was young, pushed me to do a lot of different things and always was like, hey, you got to start this business, try this, et cetera. And I look back in high school and I started a t-shirt company and bought all these t-shirts, got them printed, et cetera, and was selling them. And it was exciting in the moment, but it also was a failure, and in that it didn't last, it didn't, make a lot of money. But I think the encouragement part of it was that I could do it. And I think that's what a lot of first-time entrepreneurs are worried about when they jump off, is that, can I do it? And most entrepreneurs, it's not their first thing that's successful. And so for me, the greatest failure leading to the greatest success was trying something that didn't work and then being encouraged by my dad to try it again and do something else.
Oh, that's really awesome. So with your dad being a serial entrepreneur, I think it's probably prudent to assume that he had learned to embrace failure. Did he help create a culture of embracing failure, or was that something he left you to just kind of, learn on your own?
Well, I saw it modeled by him. One of the great failures in his life led to one of his greatest successes, in that he did a piece of artwork and did a handshake deal with somebody to manufacture it. And the manufacturer wound up going behind his back and taking that and selling it worldwide and making millions and millions of dollars. And us as a family, all of my dad's friends, everybody was like, dude, you got to go sue this guy. He's using your piece of art to make millions of dollars for himself. And wound up years later, my dad goes to an auction where the guy who was selling all this stuff got cancer and was dying and was having to sell off all the stuff of his company. And he's there at the auction and he buys back his work, the rights to his work and the rights to all these other artists' work, and was able to 15, 20 years later redeem not only his idea, but also all these other artists. And you look at something like that and you're like, that's a failure. He didn't make all the money, but now he's even more successful. And it's because he, learned from that and said, I'm not going to pursue that. That's something I'm going to come back to later. And it wound up coming back to, help him and all of his other artist friends.
For sure. That's a really cool story. What's the difference between failure in general, just the idea of failure, and this idea of being afraid or fearful of failure? How do you compare that, and how do you approach that?
I struggle with this a lot, and I think a lot of other people do as well, is that fear is a crippling thing, and a lot of it is the fear of the unknown, not knowing what's going to happen. And sometimes it's fear of success too. I talk with a lot of folks that once you kind of dig into it, and this is for myself as well, they're afraid of the good things that could happen. Will that make me successful? Will that, and that is a fear as well. But they're two very different things. And I think the being afraid to fail stops you from doing things. Failing means you're doing things. And that's what I think is most important, is to put one foot in front of the other. Keep stepping ahead, keep trying things. And it's the people who stop that wind up not being successful. It's the people who keep going that wind up being successful.
For sure. And I think as you're speaking that, I think that speaks to our times right now. We're in a point in time where the economy has just been put on pause.
Yeah.
We may or may not enter a recession. What would be your big advice towards people right now looking at their businesses and their lives, and they feel like things aren't working out or their dreams are not happening? What would be your advice on them to approach that fear of failure, that fear of not moving forward?
Do one thing. Like literally, I know there's people watching right now. I know, and I'm saying this for myself too, and for a lot of other entrepreneurs I know. Just do one thing. Get up in the morning, do one thing. The next morning, get up, do one thing. And the more that you push yourself out there and try things, you're going to find something that's going to work. And I love the idea of that. It's not a pivot. It's not a transition. It's failure. And I think we need to be comfortable with trying one thing and failing, coming back, trying it again. So I get it. We're all afraid. We need to take a step.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Thank you for sharing your stories today. This has been Founders Fail, Lessons Learned, and we really appreciate you tuning in with us today. But we really want to know what are your failure stories? What are your biggest failure moments? You can send that to us or share it with #FoundersFail. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.